So it's another rainy day here in the UK, so I thought what better time than to talk to you about thinking about getting solar panels here in the UK. So I've been thinking about getting solar for a while now, and I can never kind of make my mind up whether it's going to be worth it or not. But a few people I know have got solar, some family members, and most recently my friend Ed, who you've met on the channel before. And it's kind of got me thinking a little bit more about going for solar. So this week I've had multiple companies, actually over the last 2 weeks, had multiple companies providing me with quotes. And they've nearly all come through now, so I'm thinking I'm going to make a decision over the weekend and then give someone a call next week if I decide to go ahead. But I thought I would kind of share my initial experiences with you guys in the hope that it might help. And then if I do decide to go ahead with solar, I'll kind of report more on my process to help you guys make more informed decisions in the future. If you have got solar and you've got good or bad experiences, please leave a comment below. That'd be helpful for myself and for others. So the first thing about solar and these solar installation people or the solar companies, it seems to be like a minefield. So there is some, I guess, regulation around it. I think it's called MCS. People have to be MCS certified and the equipment has to be MCS certified if you want to get the feed-in tariffs. Now in the UK we have this thing called a feed-in tariff, and basically that defines kind of how much electricity you're going to put back into the grid. Obviously that's going to depend on the size of your installation, so how many kilowatts you can put back, and you'll get a feed-in tariff based on the size of your installation. And it's kind of strange. Again, I'm not an expert on this, so don't kind of quote me on all of this information, but based on my research, my understanding, you get 50% payback on that tariff, on that feed-in tariff, based on the amount of electricity that you generate. Now you might still generate all that electricity and use all that electricity, but you'll still get a payment worth 50% of that. It's kind of strange, but good if you're in a position to use most electricity. And really that's my goal with this solar installation, is that being someone who's works from home and has all this IT equipment running, I want to be maximizing and utilizing all that power myself. I'm not really that interested in giving anything back, but obviously it's good that you have this capability. Now in the UK, they're reviewing, I think it's every quarter that they review that feed-in tariff value, and it's constantly going down. I think it's 2019 or somewhere around there, they're abolishing it altogether. So if you're going to get solar and the feed-in tariff thing is important to you, then you probably should be thinking about that before that ends altogether. Now, what I found is I think I've had about six or seven different companies come and give quotes, and there's very little consistency between anyone. So it's really important to do your own research to understand what it is that you're looking for and what it is that you want. Now remember, you are the customer, so these people should be providing a service to you and helping understand what you need and what you want. Obviously they're there to provide guidance, and their experience and knowledge should guide you into a solution that makes sense. But remember, you know, not to be bullied into one thing or another, a too big or a too small system. So one of the important things to understand in the UK is the typical solar panel installation is around 4 kilowatt system. That isn't the most that you can have. I'm not sure if there is a maximum. I've read somewhere that some people say 10 kilowatts, but I've seen other people that had 12 kilowatt installs. So I don't know if there is a maximum, but what I do know is 4 kilowatt tends to be the standard. And if you want a larger install, you have to have approval from your kind of district electricity operator. So here where I live, it's Western Power, and you have to submit G49 application form, which is basically a DNO form, telling them you want to install this type of system, this size, this capacity, this many panels, this, your batteries and what have you, and they will come back and basically say yes, you can have that, or no, you can't, you can only have this. You can only do this really once. I mean, you can kind of go back and kind of suggest that you're going to change the system slightly, that they may decide to review it, but you don't want every person that's providing you a quote to submit one of these forms, because once someone says yes, that's it. So if someone submits a 6 kilowatt system and that gets approved, you can't then go and submit another 9 kilowatt one, right? Because that's not how it works. And really the things that they're keeping in mind is, you might not be using any of this power. So 100% of the power you generate is going back into the grid. So they have to understand about the cabling, the size of the transformer, and how many other people in the area currently have solar. So how capable are the cables and transformer to be able to handle all this power. And that's really how they end up coming back to you with a decision. So solar really is pretty simple. There's really only two main components. There's the panels and there's the inverter. So when it comes to panels, there's many panels available. But in my opinion, really the thing that you're looking for is the product warranty and the performance warranty. Now, there are what they call premium brands of panels, so the likes of Panasonic and LG, but you do pay a premium for them, and typically I don't think the performance is worth the premium in cost. Also, the panels in general have a performance rating of somewhere between 17 to 23%. So none of these panels allow you to get 100% of the power out of it, right? So that's an important thing to understand straight off. But there's a multiple panel manufacturers. One of the quite common ones is JA Solar. They seem to be pretty good. I think they're a tier 1 company. There's SunPower, QCell, Pymar, I think it is, along with obviously Panasonic and LG and other people. But really the most important thing there is, what is the warranty of the panel and what is the performance guarantee. So in general, you're looking for a good panel, I should say, will guarantee its performance after 20 to 25 years of being around 80 to 85%. So that means in 20 years time, when this has paid back itself, it's still able to generate 80% of its original capacity. And most of the panels have kind of somewhere between 10 to 20 year product warranty for defects and things. So those are things to keep in mind. Then you have the inverters. And so basically the way the inverters work, so the power is coming from these panels in DC, and you have to convert that into AC power so that you can use it in your house. And again, there's a plethora of inverters available. So there's people like Solax, Goodwe, Solar Edge, Solus, to name a few, and they all have kind of different pros and cons, and that's where you have to make sure that the panel solution, the panel size and the inverter that you are having matches. So you might have to have multiple inverters depending what type of inverter manufacturer you go with, and so these inverters tend to range from 2 kilowatts, 4 kilowatts, 6 kilowatts. I think I have seen some manufacturers do a 7 kilowatt one in the UK, but basically if you've got a 10 kilowatt system and if you then only have potentially a 6 kilowatt inverter, and we get onto that in a moment, then perhaps you're losing 3 kilowatts potentially, right? There's always going to be loss in terms of what's generated and what can actually be utilized. But the key things to remember here is just because you have a 9 kilowatt system, that's its theoretical maximum, right? And especially in the UK, you've only got a few kind of weeks of the year where it's ever going to generate that, right? And this is also why it's important, in my opinion, to have as big a solar panel array as you can, because the majority of the time in this country the weather's crap, right? So you want the ability to pull in as much energy as you can get in those crappy weather, cloudy days. I think it's important, one misconception is it's all about sun, it's just daylight. And sometimes even direct sunlight can be worse than just general good daylight. So keep that in mind in terms of, so if you've got a certain panel array, you need to have an inverter or inverters that are able to take that energy, harness it, and then make it usable to you. One of the products that I think is best, based on my research, is a company called Solar Edge. And there's a couple of reasons why I like them. First of all, they allow you, and to keep things in warranty as well, to overpower the inverter. So you can get a 6 kilowatt inverter, and if you get one of their HD Wave models, you can overpower that by 155%. So what that means is you could have a 9.3 kilowatt system and still only need that single 6 kilowatt inverter. The other thing that they also do is they have something called optimizers, which is like a little mini inverter that goes on the back of each of the panels you install, and that increases the panel performance by somewhere between 10 to 20% as well, so you're getting even more out of it. Now, the optimizers are really recommended if you have an area that is shaded. So with the old kind of solar systems, if you had shading over one panel that kind of reduced the power to 50%, all the panels in that string or that array would also be knocked down to like a 50% performance. But with things like these optimizers, it means if the one panel's shading, that one panel goes down to 50%, but everything else stays at 100. But even if you don't have a shaded area, it still increases and optimizes that panel. So especially in the UK where the weather is worse, you want all you can to get the most out of those solar panels. Now, the optimizers are really the product that is going to need to be replaced more often. So typically they have a somewhere between 10 to 12 year warranty. Now obviously they may last longer. It's going to depend how hard you drive them, so how much power you're putting through. Another thing I like about the Solar Edge inverters is typically they come with a 12-year warranty as opposed to 10, and you can increase that warranty up to 20 and 25 years. So I think it's something like £180 or something to extend it to 20 years, and around £250 or something to increase it to 25 years. So if you spend that, then your panels potentially going to have 20-25 years on there. The inverter is going to have 20 to 25 years on there. The optimizers have, and so pretty much you haven't got anything to worry about potentially in that 20 to 25 year span. The next thing to think about is battery storage. So especially as these feed-in tariffs are going away, you want to think about, do you want to be able to harness this power for use in the evening? So if you do that, you're going to need batteries. There's a few different kind of popular makes of battery on the market. One you're probably most familiar with is Tesla. So Tesla have the Powerwall 2. That is actually an AC battery. The previous Tesla Powerwall was DC, and we're going to that a little bit in a moment. So that's an AC battery solution. And then you've got companies like LG. They do an LG Chem battery. That's also wall mountable, a bit like the Tesla. And all of these are modular, right? So you can have multiple Powerwalls or multiple LG Chem batteries. And there's another company called Pylon Tech, and they're another modular stackable solution. Now, the LG Chem and the Pylon Tech ones, they are DC batteries. So if you have that battery solution, you need to have an additional inverter that does the DC to AC conversion, both in and out of the battery, to enable you to kind of store the power and obviously then use it as well. So things you need to consider, for example, if you've got a small system and you're at home, you're probably going to be consuming all of that power, so you're going to have nothing to put in the battery. So it doesn't make sense to buy batteries, in my opinion. But perhaps you've got a small system, you're out all day, and you're basically sucking all that power in and storing it, so in the evening you can run from it. Obviously, with the battery and in the solar in general, there's only a certain amount of power that it can push out. So if you're running your washing machine and your dishwasher and boiling the kettle and cooking the oven, you're probably having a bigger draw than your solar and battery system can provide. So then you are going to be pulling from the grid as well. So you need to think about being smart with how you use power and when you're using it, so you can just kind of manage and utilize that stuff effectively. I think that's really the main thing. So like I say, do your homework, read these spec sheets. Now, me personally, I've got the house roof and this roof over the cave. Depending on what size panel I go for, I probably could have a kind of a 10 kilowatt-ish system, but then I'm definitely running into the multiple inverter solution. But I'm thinking around a 9 kilowatt system So that'd be around 30 300 watt panels. I don't remember if I mentioned that the panels obviously come in different sizes, 280, 295, 300, 320, etc. So again, make your choice around that. There's also monocrystalline panels, and I can't remember the other type now, but I think monocrystalline tends to be the most popular, and if you want it to be in a nice black looking casing, then that's the one you want to go for. But yeah, so I'm looking for all black panels, so it's going to fit in with a slate roof, which I have. If you do have a slate roof, make sure you make the person doing the quote aware of that, because you've got a couple of options with slate. It's recommended that you actually cut the slate to put them in as opposed to drilling them. Some people have like a plastic slate substitute solution, so they take the slate out and put this kind of plastic panel in, which they then put the clamps to put the mounting brackets and everything on there. So yeah, I'm looking for around 30 panels, so around a 9 kilowatt system. I'm really favouring this solar edge stuff, so I get a single 6 kilowatt solar edge inverter, which could then be obviously take a system up to 9.3, 30 of those optimizers on there, and then one of these Tesla Powerwall 2s, which is around 13.5 to 14 kilowatts battery capacity. And the thing I like about those, if you're looking for a larger battery, kilowatt per pound, that's kind of the best you can buy it. You're kind of saving around £7 per kilowatt storage capacity with a Tesla Powerwall. Those other solutions come in smaller kind of packages, so like 2.4 kilowatts or something per module, so you have to have multiple of them to have equivalent. So if you only want 4 kilowatts, then you probably want to look at one of the other solutions. If you're looking for something bigger, so you want at least kind of 12, 13, 14, then I think consider the Powerwall. So that's what I'm looking for. Obviously then you've got to work out where you're going to mount all this stuff and run cables and everything. And a couple of other things that I'm also looking at is being able to power and heat the water in the tank. So there's something called an eddy that you can use that kind of prioritizes power to the hot water if there's solar. So power to the water first, then to the rest of the house after, and you can control this stuff wirelessly with a thing called a Harvey. Then if you have an electric car, there's also something called a Zappy, which this is all from the same company, this Eddy, Harvey and Zappy thing. So these are cool new products that work really well with a solar installation, so you can prioritize the use of solar to heat your water or charge your electric car. And other things that you can consider with a battery as well. If you're on economy 7, some of the battery solutions allow you to charge up the battery at night on the cheaper electricity. And I think one of the last things people need to be aware of with solar battery install is, by default, if you have solar and a battery, that doesn't mean when there's a power cut you're okay. These systems have to be designed to stop working and cut off when there's a power cut, because otherwise when there's some poor guy working in the street trying to fix your power, he's going to have 4, 5, 6, 10, 9 kilowatts of power hitting him, right? And it's obviously not going to be very good. So you can look at having a solution where your power is disconnected from the main, so be a manual or automated time kind of switch over. Based on my research, you're looking around £500 for that. It will have an impact on kind of where your equipment's mounted, and then really how you can feed some of that stuff in, and is it only the lights you can power, or what is it that you're going to be able to power. So I think unless you live in an area that has high power outages, then it's probably not worth it. It's probably not worth spending that £500 on there. Yes, I think that's it. Based on my use case and scenario, I think I'm going to get payback in around 10 to 11 years, maybe 13 at worst, depending on how things go. Obviously, electricity cost is constantly going up, and I'm trying to make that decision as to, does it make sense to, is this money better off in the bank, or what's worth borrowing from the bank, or how should things go? So I'll do an updated video next week once I make a decision, telling you what I'm going with, why I'm going for it, and then we'll do some videos on the actual installation if I go ahead. So I hope this was helpful. I probably babbled on a little bit about some things, and perhaps some things aren't clear, but ask questions and I'll do my best to tell you about the knowledge that I've found. But yeah, really my tip is do your homework, speak to lots of people. If you don't feel comfortable with what the person is telling you is correct, then, you know, steer clear, go with someone else. And try and speak to people who live near you, right? If they've got solar installations, get recommendations, find out, was the person tidy, did they do a good job, did they wreck your roof and put massive holes everywhere, or were they tidy and courteous and respected your property.
Thanks for watching this video. A thumbs up would be really appreciated. If you're interested in other geek type videos, please consider subscribing to Spectrum Geeks. Why not also follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And before you leave, why don't you check out one of these other videos that may be of interest. Thanks again for watching.